that. And I'm just going to grab a few colors that I want to try together. So and the one other thing I heard is that you want to go darker because light doesn't really show up. So I have dark Evening Evergreen. I have dark Soft Succulent. And I'm going to grab one more. Dark Just Jade, I believe, is the one I want. Yep, Dark Just Jade. And then I want to bring in something different. So I think I'm going to go with just a little bit of dark polished pink just to see what it looks like. So for this technique, from what I've seen, one other thing that is very helpful is you don't necessarily have to have new markers. So if you have a marker, and I do have one, I'm going to just show you. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Where the tip is kind of busted, this will still work really well with that. So if maybe you have new Stampin' Blends and you don't really want to mess with the color of them, you could use your older Stampin' Blends for this, but just going to put a few and we'll see what this looks like. So that was Dark Evening Evergreen, Dark Soft Succulent, Dark Just Jade, and this is Dark Polished Pink. I still wanted to call it Lovely Lipstick, but I think Lovely Lipstick, is that one of the ones that retired? Yeah, that one retired not so long ago. So some people, and I've seen this again many different ways, some people have completely covered this up. And just to give you an idea, which this is the linen paper, so I'll put it behind so you can see a little bit better. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like. It does really pop when you use white. Now, granted, that's linen paper, so it's not super white, but I'll be interested to maybe even try it with this to see if it still reacts. It probably moves a little bit nicer with the vellum, just because vellum doesn't really absorb the alcohol or the ink. So I'm just going to use this. I'm just improvising for now. And come on. Oh my gosh, it just goes to show you, my grandfather used to always get rubbing alcohol, or I would say he would always ask me to get him rubbing alcohol. And I never really knew what he used it for, but yeah, you're right. It goes a little bit, but it's not nearly as nice as it was. So he used to always have rubbing alcohol for whatever purpose it was. So I have all this rubbing alcohol that I've gone through over time, and now I totally can see why, how much I've used it anyway. Now, one thing about this, with using this, and you want to have a paper towel handy when you do this, because you want to clean off in between colors, so you don't want to go from green into the pink. You want to clean it off first. But they will merge together a little bit. But probably if you did this with the 70 and it was still actually wet, like if you put the ink on and then put this on directly, it is moving the pink a little bit more. Could have been because the pink was a little bit more wet recently. But, so anyway, this technique did look really, really cool. And I think it's probably a neat technique since we don't actually have alcohol inks. So it's kind of our way of making some of our inks into alcohol inks. So the pink is definitely spreading much better. I wonder if the pinks and purples necessarily would spread a little bit better. And obviously when you have your color on there, it's going to curl a little bit. I'm going to move this just a smidge more. And I want to try one more thing. I'm going to try something really quickly. I'm trying to just get a little bit of it to dry. Oops. Hold on. And depending on your color palette, obviously, some things are going to bleed more than others. And hold on one second. I'm going to see if I can open this up a little. It does dry pretty quickly though. The 90 probably dries much faster. I'm just going to heat this just for a sec. And it's always going to curl a little bit. That's kind of just one of the things with wetting the vellum. But I want to try one thing and see. I'm going to bring in just a little bit of, I think this is Midnight. Yeah, Misty Moonlight, Midnight. Geez whiz, I don't even know what it's called. So what I'm going to do is I have my brush wet, and I want to add in just a little bit of blue. It does spread faster if you do it when it's still wet. So if for some reason, let's say you're trying this technique and you just cannot get to the store to get the 90, it does definitely work nicer this way. But I will definitely go pick that up. As a matter of fact, I will get it today because I do have a couple errands to run. And it spreads it. You can see though with the pigment of this, it does do a different job spreading the pigment probably than the 90 does. But it's still pretty neat. It's pretty neat, even though like picking this up and moving it around, you can see it does spread it really softly, which is pretty cool. Okay, so not my most beautiful, I will say that for sure. So we definitely are going to need to grab the other type. But what you're going to do is let it dry. The other thing that I saw someone did that I thought was really, really cool as well is grabbing Wink of Stella. And I'll show you this with my little... Oh my goodness, this one may almost be empty. Oop, hold on, we'll save that one for 1 second. There we go. That's a good one. I'm going to keep that one since it's clean, and I'll just use this one that's almost empty. But you can kind of dip your pen in there and flick. And then you can get some big splatters of color. Obviously, whoo, looking at this, what I'm doing, this is definitely not a super neat technique. So you want to make sure... Oh, you know what I'm going to do? You want to make sure that you have your work surface protected. I'm going to put this right over here, just so I can get a little splatter over there. Okay, put this on the side. So this is definitely going to need some major adhesive, as you can see, okay? And again, we do have these weird squiggles. So this one will say, for point of just at this point, is going to be more of an abstract piece that you're probably going to want to use for like a whatever card. So we'll say that's for a, let me just make sure this is clean. Not sympathy, but you could use it for like a pick-me-up kind of a card at this point. But I really want to, I'm definitely going to get the other stuff as soon as I leave because I want it, really want to try that. I think it'll be cool. But the nice part is it gives you a whole nother use for your water painters without actually having to fill them with something, because you can just dip into something with them. You can also fill your spritzers up, which I have several others of those that are not full whatsoever. So you can definitely fill those up and use them with something else. Even on the other side is not so bad with the muted colors, but it does have a lot of sparkle, which is pretty cool. But if you spray the alcohol with your spritzer in a big spritzer, or even if you tap and do it, it will really give you those little watermark puddles, not puzzles, is what I wanted to say. And those look really pretty as well. So another simple idea, but again, we'll do that once more with the alcohol once I get the other alcohol. So the other thing we can do today, and this is another one that I have not used yet because I really like this set, but I haven't used it nearly enough. Just thought we could do a little bit of inking with this, is Sweet as a Peach. I just recently got this. And in case you missed it, the photopolymer stamps, they do have this image now on the background. So if you prefer doing something like that, you can take them off. I know some people don't like that. I really bought this, quite honestly, for the sentiments because I love the fonts for both of these. This also does have, and I'm just going to pull this out right here, a beautiful, beautiful paper that goes with it called You're a Peach. You can see this has a lot of really nice imagery that you could use for anything. I think this is one of my favorite pieces. The peach and the green and the blue are so pretty together. But you could always use these two to make really, really simple cards. So it doesn't always have to be something that's complicated or super involved or even that has a lot of, you know, the dies or whatever in it. It can be something really simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, and I just want to make sure I have my die cut machine, and I'm going to tell you what, I don't want to jinx myself, but I can't believe you know who is completely passed out behind me. So he must have had a romping good time yesterday with the family. My father-in-law came over, and he's probably still exhausted from that, which is just kind of hilarious in itself. So since this is photopolymer, I have my Stampin' Pierce mat, so I'm going to just use that. And so also one other thing, this is the very first time that I've used these stamps. So two things you can do when you're using photopolymer stamps for the first time. You can kind of put them on your hand just to kind of pick up a little bit of tackiness. And then another smart thing to do is to just clean them just a little bit, just to make sure you get off any residual goopy stuff before you stamp with them. So I just usually will spray my Stampin' Scrub on one side, kind of clean off my stamp. So clean it, wet it, dry it, and then we'll see. I'll keep this on the side just in case I need it. But let us take a peek. What would be nice? Mango Melody might be pretty. So let me just stamp this just once just to see what it looks like. This is a different style of a stamp. It's definitely going to have darker and lighter spaces, and it's a little bit more watercolory than some of the images. Okay, so that is Mango. Let me try this one in Calypso Coral. This might be kind of pretty. Probably put those a little bit too close together. So there's a light and a dark. That one's really pretty. So Calypso Coral makes some really nice peaches. One other thing I want to show you really quickly, let me wipe this off just for one sec, is you can also, so I'm going to ink this in Calypso Coral, stamp it off, and then what I'm going to do is grab my Mango marker, and I have the broad tip of it, and just kind of bring just a little bit just on like one side, kind of try to stick with one side, and then stamp it. So you have kind of like a little bit of a highlight of color. Another thing you can do, and this will be something that you'll kind of fool with as you work with it, if you don't necessarily like the grainy look, you can also take your blender pen and you can kind of soften the color a little bit. It'll kind of smooth out a little bit of that grainy look to the peach. Now you don't really necessarily want it to fill in all the way, but it will almost soften out the color marking. So this is actually stamped onto, and I'm going from light to darker, so when I go over here to the Mango, I'll lighten it up a little bit. This is definitely a little bit more yellow. I think I probably bring a little bit of coral onto this. Let me show you what I mean. So I'll take my Calypso Coral over here, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of color, which it does pick up a good amount, so you kind of want to, and just kind of bring in a little bit of shading. It almost gives more of a shaded look to part of it. So just something you can do if you want a little bit more depth to some of your fruit. But I think this one would go equally as well with the berry stamp set. I know we have berry blessings, and I cannot remember. I think it's sweet strawberry maybe is the other one. So you can always use your blender pens to kind of soften those out a little bit. One other nice thing, this one does come with dies. So you can line this up, and you can see it lines up really, really well. So I'm going to cut these. And I do have my magnetic plate, but sometimes it's a little bit weird depending on how I have it lined up. So I'm going to run these 3 through. I'm going to run them through my die cutting machine. Another funny story, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's some yard work going on behind me, the house behind me, about 2 days before we got Jack. And you can see, whoops, it does cut these out really nicely. We had a massive storm roll through. And I do think we somehow in our street here had some sort of a very small tornado go through. Because there are so many trees ripped in a similar and then a completely contrasting direction around here. The person behind us, it split this tree that has to be about 70 years old. It split it completely in half, and they still are working on trying to get it down because they're going to have somebody come into their yard because it's actually not safe for someone to climb and trim. So they're still working on getting rid of that, but it knocked down one of our fence panels, which we do thankfully have a vinyl fence, so it was pretty simple to put back together. But it was 2 days before we were getting Jack, bringing him home, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is just insanity. What's the likelihood? We haven't had a dog for all these years, and the time when we actually need the fence part of it was in the pool. Oh, it was a heck of a mess. We had a lot of trees down behind us. Luckily, we didn't have any damage whatsoever to our house. I am so happy for that because, you know, a lot of times when people, especially we have a lot of trees, but when you have a lot of trees, you tend to end up with something into your house. So thank God we did not have any problems whatsoever with that. And the people that were behind us that had a couple split trees, they also did not have any house damage. So everyone around here was really, really very grateful for that. So here are a bunch of different peaches. And then the other thing I'm going to do is just a couple leaves so we can kind of add a few things together with the leaves. Now the leaves are nice because they stamp in one, you see I already pulled them off here, one really big piece. And so here's the other thing, just to show you this with the plastic that comes in here now. So once you pull all of these off, personally, I really never used the second piece because it kind of always got in my way. So this piece is super flimsy, but you could use it if you wanted to have a clear piece to hold your paper down. That way you don't get your fingers inky. I don't know how that is actually possible because I don't think I've ever made a card doing any kind of holding and not gotten my fingers inky, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, when you're finished with this whole situation here, this paper or this acetate here is really great to use as a window sheet. So if you wanted to make a card with a clear window, you can actually use this. All you would have to do really is wipe it off a little bit, but it's going to almost be clean enough that you're really not going to notice anything. And once you have the background on there, you really wouldn't notice anyway. So you could use this piece. It's definitely considerably thicker than that other piece. So I want to put, did I pull that one out? I pulled it and then I put it back. So I'm going to use this one, but same thing again, because I haven't actually used it yet. I just want to clean it first. So this is the leaf image that coordinates with the peaches. Same thing again. I'm just going to kind of wet it, dry it. All right. And then this will be nice because it's just going to be one stamp. Put all the peaches over there. And I'll flip this over so we're not fighting what's already there. I think I'm going to go with Granny Apple Green, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of dark to it with a couple touches of my marker. So this is the first inking, so I'm just going to stamp this off just to see what it looks like. So it looks pretty good. You can see there's a little spot here, which is why I actually flipped it over when I inked it. right, so there's that. So that was Granny Apple Green. So I hear them out there with their souls. So I'm guessing they probably had to do it in steps with the tree removal. So I have a lighter inking here. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of shaded spruce and just put just like a couple, not really going anywhere specific, just a little few dashes of green. And then I'm going to huff on this. So I'm going to exhale on it and then stamp it. Hopefully I can stamp this that it's good enough to be cut out. Okay, so you have your kind of multi-color look. Now this is still a little bit weird, so I'm gonna have to look at this stamp. One other thing, and I'm gonna just show you this, and I'll grab another scrap of paper so you can see. If you ever get a stamp that's still, even after you're trying to ink it and something isn't quite inking the way you want it to, what you can do is get your Versamark and stamp your stamp with Versamark first. Sometimes you kind of just have to condition. Unfortunately, this seems to happen more with the photopolymer stamps, which can be a little bit annoying. I can totally understand that. So then I'm going to go in with my Granny Apple. And sometimes it just helps it to be able to pick up the ink a little bit better, because the Versamark is like a sticky ink. See what that one looks like. And here's where that little clear piece would come in handy. All right. So I'm going to give that a minute. It does look a little bit splotchy. That is a really wet stamp pad. So other thing I'm going to do, so I just have my same blender pen. I'm just going to try to just soften the ink. Sometimes it just takes a minute for the ink to kind of dry and settle into the paper. And you will notice this if you've been crafting for a long time, depending on what type of paper you use. Some papers will definitely do a way better job at letting the ink settle versus others. I'm going to bring in just a little bit of Pear Pizzazz. So I'm just doing the same thing that I did with that Calypso. I'm just going to bring in a little bit of color. Kind of have a darker shaded side here. There we go. So it kind of gives a little bit of modeling to the image, whereas this one is definitely a fuller image minus that one spot. Same thing again. I'm going to just clean this off a little bit. And then you still have this little, this is the first one we stamped. So you can almost fill it, kind of backfill it in. You don't want it really to be completely solid, but it will kind of blend the colors together a little bit. All right. Okay. So now this one's really nice as well because it does also have a die. So there's the great part about this. It has this die that coordinates with it. So I'll show you. Ooh, hold on. Am I on the wrong space here? What in the world? Well, look at this. I'm looking at this now. Maybe this is, because this one is matching up totally crazy. So maybe I missed the boat on this because this is definitely... Look, here. I must have laid this down completely wrong when I stamped it. Look at that. So, if you put this down, it does match. Mine, obviously, I must have had this thing like over to Wonkyville when I laid it out. So there's another thing for you. When you're picking up your stamp, instead of putting it on here and then you're moving this around and it may not match, what you could do is put your stamp down, just pick it up and let it fall the natural way it goes, and pick it up, right? So we'll just do another little show and tell here. So we're teaching everyone something, even me, this morning. Let's try this. Stamp off and go onto this side here. Let's see. Yep, look at that. So I totally had my tip of this here kind of off to one side. So I'm going to end up just probably, I'm not going to, I'm going to cut them out anyway, and then I'll just trim that last piece off, because you can see the way I laid mine down, it did not match whatsoever. So look, all my things are all the way over here on this one. You can see they're not lining up. But when I put the stamp down and picked it up the way it's supposed to go, it does line up. So there's that. There's a little tidbit for you. So I'm going to cut this one out. Even though the end piece isn't going to match, I'm just going to match the top portion. And then I'm just going to trim this little piece off, or else we could always cover it with a peach or something. But aside from that, that is kind of one of the also benefits of having photopolymer, because if you wanted your greeting to be kind of sideways or slightly tilted off to one side, you totally could still do it, because you are able to manipulate your images, which that's kind of cool. So I guess it has its, depending on how you want to look at it, it has its benefits, because you are able to manipulate it. But if you don't line it up the first time, your images aren't going to match with your die. So win-win depending on which direction you're going, right? All right, so I'm going to pull this one out. And since I had, and this one I'll just trim these two little end pieces off. This one I'm going to, since it was correct, I'm just going to trim this one, since I happened to flip it to the other side and it worked. There we go. We have 3 sets of birds with baby birds in various, we have 2 bird houses. Actually got both of them for Mother's Day, 2 years apart, which was really nice, because I do love birds and bird houses. But we also have this other little bird who decided to make a nest in a plant that's right outside of our door. So those birds are just 100% crazy, always doing crazy stuff. I'm going to just trim this off. Right like that. But the whole point of my story was, so we came home from Oakland, and it's about a 3-hour drive from here, which isn't too far. And parked in the garage, and the garage started to really reek. I thought it was the trash. Well, come to find out, somewhere along the way, a bird flew in front of my car when I was driving, and the bird was wedged in the grill of my SUV. Oh my gosh, I can tell you, I did cry. When I was outside, I felt so bad for this poor bird. Hopefully it was fast and painless, because broke my heart. You also have these little leaf dies in here, so if you wanted to really build it up, you could use your branch. You could build up with the leaves. You could build up, there's a whole bunch of different leaves. These 2 match, these 2 match, these 2. So you have lots of choices, which is really nice. But oh my gosh, I was praying and crying while I'm pulling this poor bird carcass. Oh Lord, so sad. So sad. Didn't tell Christian, because he probably would have really cried. I think I'm going to use this little piece here. I really love this peach paper. It's super pretty. And I think just for some contrast, I'm going to back it onto blue. So I'm going to grab my trimmer here. In case you're not familiar, we have a dark cutting blade and a light scoring blade. So just make sure you are on the correct one. And I'm going to let this one have a nice bordered edge. So I'm going to cut this one to 3 3/4 by 5. And I think what I'm going to do is back it onto a piece of coral and then put it onto blue. We're going to see what that looks like. So I'm going to grab my balmy blue. Let's see which one we think looks nicer. Balmy blue, and that looks really pretty actually. And let's do a piece of coral. And we'll see. We might have to reverse it. Take a peek here. This is just some wonkied up. You can see this has folds in it. So since it's going to be laying back here and you're not going to really see it, I'm just going to use this piece anyway. So this one we're going to cut to 5 1/4 by 4. Does have some score lines in it, like I said, because I've scored it for something before, but it's going to be behind here and you're really barely going to notice it. If it really, really bothered you, this is just another super tip to use. The other thing you could even do is emboss this with an embossing folder, and then it'll completely cover up the score line so you wouldn't notice it one way or the other. So we're going to use those colors. And I think I might put a little strip of this maybe on the inside, like somewhere in the center on a sentiment or something like that. So I'm just going to pull out another piece. This is thick white, I can tell. So I'm going to cut this to 4 by 5 1/4. I'll add this to the inside. So maybe tomorrow I will go out and grab that. Yeah, I'm just going to, even though this doesn't fit exactly, we're going to work with it. It's no biggie. I'm going to get the other alcohol so we can do that tomorrow for sure, because I think that'll be really, really fun. All right, so I have all my leaf pieces. One other thing I want to do, just because I kind of had this out and I have a little scrappy piece here, is I'm going to even grab, this is cinnamon cider, and I'm going to use this little branch. I'm going to cut out a couple branches and just put maybe a couple peaches on that as well. And I know this probably should be like, you should add some leafing to it, but I want to see what it looks like. So one other tip, you could do this, but I'm going to skip it. You could even put adhesive sheet on the back of this. That way when you peel it off, it'll stick, but we're just going to glue it on. So this die cuts really nicely. Only thing you might need is your pick tool just to pop this out. I'm just going to grab one more just because I can. And the other thing that I was going to tell you is I'm going to try to, if I can, next month, because this will also help me just in general. I'm going to try to do some Christmas in July cards. Now, so far, I bought the stuff that is in the annual catalog, and that's kind of what I want to work on. Where's my little strip? Here it is. Because sometimes I know, depending on shipment things, etc., I don't know what's going to go on with the holiday catalog. So I did get some stuff already, so that's what I'm going to work with. But I know summer just got here, which sounds insane, but man, I do love Christmas. I don't know how you all feel about Christmas, but, and especially I think with just getting a little bit older, and then with COVID and just sucking the joy out of everything, something about Christmas music. I just love Christmas and Christmas music pretty much all year round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this DSP to this panel that I cut. Again, it was just a recycled piece that I'm using. And I'm going to try to make sure I get all the way to the edge, just because this piece is a little bit decorative, is I guess a good way to put it already. Oops, moved it just a smidge. And I think, and I'm not usually one to do this, but I want to add like a little bit of some sort of ribbon to this. So hopefully what I choose is still, I think this one is definitely, I don't know if this one is or isn't. I'm going to try it. Why not? So I have this little piece. This is, we'll see if it is or isn't. Someone can tell me, because I know you all are always the most amazing at this. This is a Pool Party 3/8 inch wide sheer ribbon. So even though this isn't necessarily blue, it's so sheer that it really does go with it. So I'm going to wrap this around somehow, but I'm not 100% sure yet. And then the other thing I want to do is I think I'm going to put this piece, I don't know if I want to put it in the center, put it down at the bottom, and I'm going to put a little sentiment in there. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to do that in a green. So what kind of card do we think this should be? This could be like any kind of a thank you, a thinking of you. Maybe I'll do thanks so much. And then you're as sweet as a peach. I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me grab my other stamp. 13-year-old she wants to come and make her Christmas cards. Oh, She wants to be ready. Oh my goodness, she loves Christmas too. See, that makes me happy. That is awesome. How awesome is that? Where is You're as Sweet As? Did I already pull that one? You're as Sweet as a Peach. Yep. So I'm going to stamp this because it's pretty tiny. I'm going to kind of do it in steps. So I have the You're as, and then we'll do the Sweet as a Peach. I'm never really good at trying to line these things up correctly. I'm actually going to do the Sweet as a Peach part first. And let's see. We're going to go with something subtle. I'm going to do Pear Pizzazz. And we'll do the other one in Calypso Coral. Let's see how that works out. I'm going to try to kind of eyeball this. Sweet as a Peach. Oh, I love the font. God, it's so pretty. It just reminds me of beautiful penmanship when I took my time writing a long time ago. Now I'm just like slapping my handwriting on everything. Okay. And we'll put the You're as right there. Oh, that's so cute. Now we still have to do the front words, which is going to be thanks so much. Where's that one? Right here. And I think I'm just going to put that onto a little scrap strip, which I know I have some because I just trimmed this piece of paper. We'll just use that little piece of white, and I can always trim it down. And oh goodness, I got to make sure I do this correctly because apparently I already did something on here once. So let's see what we can get out of this. What was on here anyway? Oh, a car. That was from some time ago. I don't know how that one got stuck in the bottom. It must have somehow evaded the recycle bin. And oh, crooked. Recycles. Back to recycles for you. Here, let's see if we can get it to work on the end here. I can always trim it. Beautiful. Okay. All right, so again, that one was in Calypso Coral. Let me put these over so I don't goof them up. Move this stuff over. And I'm just going to trim this out with my snips. I sometimes seem to like things on an angle, so that's where I'm going with this. I'm just trimming on an angle. Pretty good. If I have the patience, maybe I will try to find a little coordinating piece of Pear Pizzazz. See if we can make that work. Now this one I'm actually going to trim a little strip with my trimmer. And then worst case scenario, I can always angle it need be. So let's see if we go like this. And we go like this, kind of line it in. Let me move it down just a smidge. And I'm kind of trying to somewhat stay on the same angle. But you know, what do we call that? Creative license, right? So there'll be that. Kind of looks a little bit like 60-ish, which is pretty cute. Okay, so I'm going to add this. Let's just take a look here. Kind of have our little ribbon piece. We have our thanks so much. I'm going to put these together just with a little bit of glue. May not match exactly, but it's okay. With that, we have our peaches, which we can pop these. Nicest part about these is they'll fit on here in different spots. You could put some of them here. We could mix up the color of the peaches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. This is the one we had that was the really, really good one because I lined it up correctly. Go like that for one. And this one doesn't match at all because we did these in different colors, which I think is kind of nice because you won't have the exact same color peaches. So variances like if you were in an actual orchard. So that's kind of cool. And we'll put one here. What else do we have over here? You could put some of these up on dimensionals if you wanted to. Put this one on a dimensional just to give it a little bit of something. And this will kind of also help to hold some of it down. We have this. We'll put this little peach up here. So we have that. And then, well, probably be a good time we're going to be wrapping up while we are, because I think it's going to get real loud out there. Put this other one here. Gotta tell you, I'm a little bit nervous about this being trimmed, but I'm glad that no one is home, because Christian would totally want to be outside right now, seeing what's going on. And as large as this tree is, it's a little bit unnerving. So I'm just kind of putting these together, just like so. I mean, you don't have to put this many peaches on every single one. Some of them are lighter than others. I'll add in, that one's a little bit too dark for that spot. How about this one? This one looks a little bit nicer. And I'll put this one on again with a dimensional as well. So I'm going to put the dimensional onto the back of the peach instead of trying to fit it onto this little teeny hang-off piece here. So we'll put this on here. That way it'll kind of stick up. The other thing you could do if you wanted to is you could take your bone folder and you could kind of curve some of the leaf parts, and it'll give it a little bit more of a realistic feel to it. Another story, just thinking about this, one of my team members, Tammy, she had some humongous, she could be on here, I'm not really sure, I didn't pay attention for a while, but she had some huge pine trees felled in her yard. They live in Washington State, and they were massive. So look how, this does really have like a nice realistic quality to it. So I think what I might do is put one of the smaller ones maybe on the inside, and put the bigger one somewhere. So let's take a look, because I don't want to put too much on here and then not really know what to do with it. So what I think I'm going to do, you can do this one of two ways. You could either take your piece of ribbon, actually you could do this many ways. You could wrap it more than once if you wanted to. If you want to have a big piece, you could tie a little faux knot. So we'll say like that. And you could put it on here and then put your sentiment on. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it, and then I may add a little faux bow to it. Give me one sec, because I just dropped that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, only because I want to put, I want it where I want it. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Stampin' Seal Plus, whatever the heck it's called. I'm not really a huge fan of the runner adhesive anymore. It doesn't tend to hold the cards, oops, that's crooked, as nicely as the liquid glue, in my opinion. Okay, so there's that. So it's down. And I'm just going to snip this. So I'm not 100% decided if I want to add the faux bow or not, but I'm going to show you how to do it regardless. And that looks pretty good, just like that. So you could do this with dimensionals. You could do this with strips. You could also do this with the big pieces. I just happen to have some that were left over. I probably used them to cut something out. You could use this with the big foam adhesive sheets if you want to pop the whole thing up a little bit better. So I'm just going to put a couple of these on here. I do have some other ones that I think I just used fun foam. So if you have the patience, you could also just glue some fun foam on there as well. But I just have some little pieces that already have the adhesive, so I'm just going to use the little ends of these. Fun foam, I think I used before we came out with this adhesive sheet, which I love the adhesive sheet. It is so really so nice, because it's so much simpler than when you have the fun foam. The only problem with it is you have to hold it and glue it and wait for it to dry so it doesn't move into a place you really don't want it. So let's see how that feels. I just need a little teeny piece. Oh, there's one more right over here. Let's see. Yep, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to pop the rest of this in here. I do have my dimensionals out just in case I need them. And here's the rest of my ribbon. Get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off center up my card. Okay. Now, if you have any worries about the fact of you put this adhesive on here, this is just for future notice. I probably should put a little teeny piece here. If you have any worries where you're like, I am going to put that on there and somehow it's going to get messed up, what you can do, you know what, I'm going to just, here we go. I'm going to cheat, so ignore me just because I don't have a piece out. I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive on here and glue this one down. But what you can do, come on, you can put a little teeny bit of adhesive onto this sticky part here. So just a little bit, doesn't need to be a lot, just a little bit because it gives it a little bit of motion. And what it will do is it gives you a little bit that you can adjust this if you need to. So it makes it just a little bit more slidey. So you can see how it's moving back and forth. That way, in case you're afraid of you have something and you're like, I'm not going to center it right, you can always put a little bit of liquid glue and it gives you a little bit of mobility. So if you wanted to, for the faux bow, since you have this all down and adhered now, what you can do is you take your little piece of ribbon after the fact, and then you just can tie it like that. And you can make, oh, that should have been a little bit tighter, but, or a little bit longer, I should say. You can tie your little faux bow. All right, it should have been longer. So you could tie your faux bow. Mine's just going to be a little faux tie. If you are going to do it and you want an actual bow, make sure you leave yourself a longer string on the other end. So you can tie it like that. So then you have your little piece without worrying about goofing up your card. So there's just a little knot. And put this over here. Then we're going to add in our sentiment. I want to put some dimensionals. Where did I do? I put them away. Put some dimensionals on the back of this. Shh, 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 shh. It's okay. He's like, it's been too long. I see you standing there and you're not touching me. And I said I wanted to use the smaller one for the inside. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I could also dimensional this, but I'm just going to put some glue in a couple spots. The spots that I know are flatter. It's okay, buddy. It's just me. Just me. Just like that. And put this here. Okay, so there's that. Okay, now I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the bottom of this because we kind of already eyeballed this up where we wanted it. And I know it doesn't fully fit, so if that's something that bothers you, you could certainly trim it, but when it's a little piece like this at the bottom, I'm just moving it down just a smidge, which again is why I also like the liquid glue. You get that nice little border. And then if you wanted to, you could add your little peaches there on the inside. It is going to bulk your card up a little bit. And the other thing people could argue, and you can argue whatever you want, that it's going to take away your writing space. So I guess it kind of depends on if you know the person, like who you're giving this to, or if you're making it for someone to give it to somebody, are they going to want a lot of room to write? It just kind of depends. So you could piece it in there if you wanted to. You could piece it up here to the top a little bit, you know, if you're just going to write something really sweet. So it kind of just depends. So I'm going to leave it off for now just in case. Again, I did put these other little pieces here that if you wanted to put your little wooden branches instead, you could fit that in with your peach. So you could even put this up top here and then maybe fit a little peach or two in there, depending on what you wanted to do. We'll say kind of like this. You definitely need some leaves in here though, so you definitely don't want to use that without the leaves. It doesn't look good. Now that I'm looking at it, I should have die cut some leaves, but I'm going to go ahead and put this on the inside. There you go. So in case you missed it, that is our new rescue puppy, Jack. If you go back and watch the beginning, I don't want to get him out again. My lord, to talk about a craftastrophe, that is going to definitely be. But look how cute that would look. I don't know. I think I'm going to put this on here anyway. I'm going to, because I like it. And you know what? I'm just going to give this to somebody that is local and I don't have to mail it. Or maybe I'll put a little extra postage on it. Whatever the case may be. Oh, I don't need glue down there. Put this right up here. As a matter of fact, we have a lady at school who is a substitute teacher, and her last name is Mrs. Peach. And I told her I said, oh, wait till you see this stamp set, because she buys everything peach. She loves peach everything. I think she has peach shoes, peach everything. But maybe I should give her this card. I think she would love it. It's really cute. And I think also using, felt like almost was going to have a sneeze. Using your bone folder to curl up the leaves a little bit, it kind of gives a little bit of, just a little bit more life to the flat leaves. And then what you can do is you can go in with your Wink of Stella. If you want to add a little bit of sparkle to your leaves. So if you're going to use that from one color to the next, make sure you do wipe it, because it does reactivate the ink. So that way you don't have green on your peaches. I don't think anybody wants to eat green peaches because they are definitely not ripe yet. And then same, you could do the same thing for the inside. Just add a little sparkle to your peaches. So, that came out a little bit more than I wanted to. I'm going to have to leave this open so it dries. Dries just a little bit. But nice part is, since I cut that, I have all these extra, I have this extra piece, which I really do like this piece here. This was the Granny Apple Green, and then it has the touches of the shaded spruce ink, except for the fact that it didn't line up. It's really cute. And honestly, look at this. You don't even notice that that other piece is missing, because this is the only one that I lined up correctly. If you remember, we trimmed this part off because I botched up my stamp when I laid it down. This is adorable, but even on here, you don't really notice that it's missing. So I think that's, probably perfectly fine. But I do. I love Wink of Stella as well. It really just gives like such a nice, fun sparkle to everything. And I also like the fact of just this little tiny faux tie down here is really cute. And this, again, I don't know if this is or isn't current, but this was Pool Party, and I still think it works pretty well even with the balmy blue. And I like the balmy blue bringing the blue flowers in. But that's the great part about this designer series paper. It has so many nice, this I think is one of the prettiest colors, and I think it's, or prettiest paper, I think it's just the contrast of colors. And that, even with this, if you were going to make a card and make something with like two different pieces of DSP, so you had like a strip of the lines and then the peach paper, it's really, really pretty together. This one is almost a little too boring with the blue on blue, but the flowers and the stripes would look really pretty as well. And this one, quite honestly, I like this side much better than this side, so I probably would only use the stripes, which are really pretty. I love the dots, the ombre dots, the peaches, the green. It is a really, really pretty paper. So if you haven't gotten your hands on that, I did do a DSP share, which was really, really fun. And I thank you everyone who participated in that, myself included, because I did participate in this one. But it's a great way to get the paper in case you may not really like all of it. So it kind of gives you something else to, to see it up close, and that way you can see if you really do or don't like it. But again, we did some of these, in case you missed it, we did some of these peaches with Calypso Coral. We did some of them with stamped off Calypso Coral, which would be this one. We did Mango Melody, and then we kind of took our blender pens and we blended the colors in to kind of make it have a little bit softer of a look. We did different leaves with different colors. One other thing, in case you missed it in the beginning, if you can't get your photopolymer stamps to stamp just as well as you think they should, try, first of all, inking them on their hand, or not inking them, rubbing them on your hand. That kind of gets like a little bit of the finish off, and it puts a little bit of the oils to condition to the stamps. Clean your stamps, so either spray your stamps directly or spray your Stampin' Scrub. And the reason I specifically say the Stampin' Scrub is, as opposed to the chamois, it has this little felt cloth that really gets into the nooks and crannies of the stamp. So it really does, I think it's the best thing, honestly. I stopped using this for a while. I used my chamois because it was just easier to just wet it. But this one, it cleans your stamps so much more thoroughly. So Do your spray, wet it, dry it, and then if it still isn't inking, again, these are factory produced, so sometimes specifically with a photopolymer, they do need a little bit extra love to get them to work. Try Versamark, because Versamark is a sticky ink. And what it does is it helps the ink to stick to the stamp better. But the other thing to kind of keep in mind when you do stamp is that when you were stamping with photopolymer, and myself, especially with doing videos, you know, when you're doing a video, you kind of want the thing like, not that you want it now, but you kind of want it a little bit faster, right? Because you're expecting, you want to get on here, you want to see what the person's making, and then you want to move on. But when you stamp with photopolymer, you always want to make sure that you hold your stamp there for the ink to transfer from the stamp to the paper, versus if you just do like this, it's never going to look as good because it's not meant to just, you know, look how modeled it is. Here you're getting more of a solid image. Also, when you're stamping, consider stamping more than one generation of ink. So first generation, second generation, third, sometimes depending on your color, will still give you a pretty good, this one's pretty light. But also, we're stamping here just on the scrap paper. This isn't cardstock, which will totally give you a different feel as well. But if you're ever having issues with your stamp, first of all, try those couple steps. You know, typically those are the things that will help you to get it to work a little bit easier if it's not working correctly. If not, try cleaning your stamps. So we do sell Stampin' Mist, which you can use with the scrub. And then the other part that's nice is that it does come with a refill. So you can purchase that. And then what you do is you have your same bottle that you use, oops, over and over again. There's a bubble. So your same bottle, which mine was kind of getting a little bit low. You just take your bottle. You fill it back up. I have to order another one of those, speaking of. And spritz, you don't really need a lot. Spritz your wet side, which I, for some reason, always use my umbrella side as the wet side. I do it opposite. So I use the umbrella as the wet side, and then my raindrops are dry. Yes, I am Polish and proud, and I love everything I do, even though sometimes I do it backwards. But doing things backwards is sometimes the best way to do it. Because as they said, I believe they said that about, I can't even remember who it was that danced with Fred Astaire, but she did everything backwards and in heels. So clean it, dry it, and then always try re-inking it again. For some reason, it still doesn't work. If I am not your demonstrator, contact your demonstrator, or if you are a demonstrator, contact demo support, because they do stand by their products. If you have an issue with your stamps, you know, certainly contact them and they will take care of it. We have excellent customer service. That's one of the best things about Stampin' Up. Excellent customer service. They always want the customers to be happy. All of the inks match each other, match the paper, match the ribbon, match the Stampin' Blends. Everything is so nicely color coordinated. That's one of the best parts. You don't have to worry about if you get red, is it going to be the red that matches? Because I did go that route in the beginning and I was like, oh, I'll just go to Michael's and get black paper. I remember that. I did that one time. And the black paper was so flimsy, when I made a card, it wouldn't stand up. It kept doing this. And then if I got it to stand up finally, it would go like that. So never, ever made that mistake again to try to go the way that was cheaper, just because the quality in Stampin' Up, the customer support that you get from your demonstrator and from the company is bar none. There is no one to match it. So thank you guys so much for joining me. We will try this failed thing again tomorrow. Although I probably will try to do something with this because that's just the way I am. You know what? I might end up reactivating this one tomorrow with the correct alcohol content, rubbing alcohol. So remember, this was 70. You don't want to use that. So someone told me that, but you know, I don't listen well. I had to do it myself and learn my own way, but they were correct. You definitely need 90. I think it's 91 to 99. So I'm going to go get some of that when we're finished. And that way tomorrow I will meet you here again. We'll meet at 9:30. I should be on time tomorrow because Bible school starts at 9, so I have plenty of time to get home. I just won't be chatting with anybody. I have to do my chatting on the way back. But we still did make this really pretty card. Really, really simple. We definitely shared a couple different ways to use the peaches to ink things up. And I think you could probably even make these into different fruit if you wanted to. You could combine this with the strawberry, the sweet strawberry. I have to order that because now that I have the peaches, I need the strawberries because it's just as cute. And then I can also bring in my Celebration strawberry I think that one had blueberries though. Blueberries and raspberries, which are, I love fruit. I mean, who doesn't love fruit, especially on a card? It's super cute. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. I will see you again tomorrow. I'm going to try to keep this going all week. So if you're going to be here to watch, I'm going to be here to stamp. And I'm going to be live. I'm going to shoot for hopefully every day this week at 9:30. If for some reason something comes up, I will put a note, but I will do a post the evening before, and tomorrow we'll work on the alcohol cards, the alcohol markers with the alcohol spritzing, because I really, really, really want to do that. And then we'll do some other stuff. So if you have something that you haven't seen made, or a stamp set that you want to see used, or anything like that, please feel free to either send me a message, leave me a comment here, send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com, and I will try to make it happen. Since we're going to be here all week, we'll do some fun stuff. I haven't seen you guys in a while, so this will make me just as happy, hopefully, as it makes you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.